Holocrons were information storage devices used by the Jedi and Sith that contained ancient lessons or other information in holographic form. Today I'll be talking about how a Force user went about creating one of their own. Unfortunately, the current canon doesn't have much for us to go on, so I'll be pulling most of this information from Star Wars Legends, specifically the book Darth Bane Rule of Two. We'll also be focusing on Sith Holocrons because we just know more about them than Jedi Holocrons. At the time of Darth Bane, around 1,000 years before the events of the films, the art of making Sith Holocrons had been lost for several thousand more years. Bane believed they were the single most valuable tool in passing on the legacy of the Sith Lords, so he searched the galaxy for them. He found the holocrons of Revan, Peardon Nad, Belia Darzu, and Darth Endedu, and he became obsessed with creating his own. The first step in holocron construction was creating an intricate matrix of lattices and vertices that were somehow capable of storing nearly infinite amounts of knowledge. It took months to gather the rare crystals needed and then fashion them into the filaments and fibers of the network. That was followed by weeks of painstaking adjustments. Bane himself spent hundreds of hours making precise subatomic alterations through the Force. Once the crystal matrix inside the holocron was prepared, the Force user was required to carefully transcribe ancient symbols of Sith power onto the device's surface. That sounds purely cosmetic, but the markings were actually part of a ritual that would maintain the stability of the matrix. But the symbols had to be uniquely tied to the Sith Lord that was actually creating the holocron. Bane made 2 attempts at creating his own holocron before he knew this, and both times resulted in an imploded matrix and a pile of glimmering dust. The symbols inscribed onto the holocron were part of the creation of the Gatekeeper, which was an advanced simulated personality modeled after the creator's identity. Bane's first attempts were a direct copy of the holocron of Peardon Nad, when he should have been creating his own Gatekeeper. Unfortunately, the symbols kinda had an expiration date, and the Gatekeeper's cognitive power would fade over time. In Bane's third attempt, he was too cautious and his holocron didn't have the power it required. In Bane's fourth attempt, he again spent months gathering materials, weeks of meditation to focus his power, and then 3 straight days and nights of actual construction. And yet, when he poured the dark side into the Matrix, his holocron still ended in a pile of ash. It was after this fourth failure that he sought out the holocron of Belia Darzu, which taught him that holocron construction could not be rushed. To allow enough time for actual construction, Bane was required to capture his simulated personality in the capstone that would rest atop the holocron through what was called the Rite of Commencement. The ritual would add even more months to the construction, but it was the final piece of the puzzle. So, to review, creating a Sith holocron took a lot of time and precision. Creation of the Matrix, creation of the Gatekeeper, the Rite of Commencement to preserve the Gatekeeper, and finally the Matrix inside had to be filled with the power of the dark side. We don't know how Jedi holocrons differed from that of the Sith. I imagine the creation of the Matrix and the Gatekeeper were fairly similar in practice. It's possible the personality of the Gatekeeper didn't have to be preserved in a capstone only because the light side of the Force wasn't known to degrade or corrupt the same way the dark side did, but that's just conjecture on my part. If you haven't looked into the Darth Bane trilogy, I highly recommend them. They provide a lot of insight into the Sith, and Bane himself is one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars, canon or Legends. I really hope they revisit his story in canon at some point. If you want to check one of his books out, they're all available on Audible. Just click the link in the description or go to www.audibletrial.com/StarWarsExplained. If you sign up for a trial, you'll get a credit for 1 free book and you can use it on one of the Darth Bane books, or a number of other Star Wars books, or get any book you want. The point is, you get a free book and you'll be supporting the channel when you do. Rule of Two is the book where the story of Bane's holocron can be found, but that's the second in the series. Path of Destruction is the first. But that's it for today. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.